The room erupts over a play you barely followed. Everyone seems fluent in a language of teams, stats, commercials, and traditions, while you are mostly interested in the snacks or the people beside you. Their excitement is real, but it does not automatically become yours. If you are among people who feel outside the excitement around the Super Bowl, ask what this experience is responding to and what would make it more useful. That question opens a better conversation than another quick judgment about your personality. People sometimes reduce not caring about the Super Bowl to being boring, un-American, socially disconnected, or determined to ruin other people's fun. That conclusion is too small to explain the experience. Attention follows meaning and reward. If football is not tied to your memories, identity, curiosity, or relationships, the biggest game of the year may still feel like a long broadcast about something neutral. The behavior can make sense without being ideal, and understanding its purpose does not excuse every consequence. There is no single personality type behind not caring about the Super Bowl. Temperament, learning, stress, relationships, culture, and practical circumstances can combine in different proportions. Treat this explanation as a framework, not a diagnosis, and keep only what matches the evidence of your life. Start with one possible mechanism. Sports become compelling when rules and strategy create patterns the viewer can recognize and anticipate. Hold this first explanation lightly and compare it with what your body choices and energy actually do. Compare this first clue across several situations before deciding what it means. Watch how that looks in a workday. You attend a party because you like the host, then feel fraudulent when someone asks which team you support. In the first scene, the need beneath the behavior matters more than how the behavior looks from outside. Read the first scene through need timing and aftermath rather than appearance. A second layer is easy to miss. Team loyalty can turn a game into a story about belonging, place, family, and shared history. The second explanation becomes useful only when the same conditions repeatedly produce a similar response. Use the second clue only if it predicts more than one response. The experience becomes clearer in private. A commercial makes sense to you as culture, while the fourth quarter still feels emotionally distant. The private scene reveals whether the response brings genuine recovery or merely delays discomfort. Use the private example to compare real recovery with delayed discomfort. The third piece concerns attention. Knowledge creates reward because each play carries more meaning when you understand what was attempted. For the third explanation, distinguish what you observed from the meaning you assigned afterward. Keep observation and interpretation separate while testing the third clue. Social situations add another clue. Your family has repeated the same game day ritual for years, but you never formed the memory link they share. The social scene shows what happens when belonging, visibility, or another person's expectations enter the equation. Let the social example reveal the extra weight of belonging and visibility. Another part appears under pressure. Large watch parties add noise interruption and social pressure that can overwhelm interest in the game itself. This fourth possibility matters most when pressure changes the intensity, timing, or cost of the response. Pressure is the comparison point for the fourth clue. Now place the same response inside a stressful week. You try to watch alone and discover that the social energy, not football, was the only interesting part. The stressful week example separates a stable preference from a temporary response to depleted capacity. Use the stressful example to check whether depleted capacity changes the response. A final mechanism helps explain repetition. Some brains are simply more rewarded by other forms of uncertainty, mastery, narrative, or competition. The fifth explanation should increase choice. Discard it if it only supplies a more sophisticated insult. A useful fifth clue creates options instead of another fixed identity. One final scene separates a trait from a trap. Someone explains a strategic choice clearly, and the game becomes briefly more engaging because the pattern is finally visible. The final scene asks whether the behavior remains flexible when circumstances, energy, or relationships change. Let the final example test whether choice remains available as circumstances change. To make the football disinterest pattern more precise, compare three conditions: a rested day, a depleted day, and a day spent with people who feel safe. Notice whether the response changes in speed, intensity, or cost. If it shifts with context, the context belongs in the explanation. That comparison prevents one difficult moment from becoming a permanent identity. Look for a counterexample to football disinterest as carefully as you look for confirmation. Remember a time when the usual response did not happen, happened less strongly, or ended sooner. Ask what was different about preparation, energy environment, expectations, and support. A counterexample reveals the conditions that make greater choice possible. The hidden cost of football disinterest deserves equal honesty. Disinterest causes trouble only when it turns into contempt for people who care, or when you hide so completely that you miss forms of connection you would actually enjoy. Preserve whatever the response protects, connects, restores, or clarifies. Change the portion, reducing freedom, straining trust, or moving you farther from what you value. Start by observing the pattern. Decide which part of the event you genuinely want: the game, the gathering, the food, the halftime show, or none of it. A second step is practical. If you want to understand more, ask one curious question about strategy instead of pretending to know the entire sport. Third, make the change specific. Set a time limit for a loud party so participation does not require sacrificing your whole evening. Fourth, make the new response repeatable. Connect through hosting cooking or conversation if those roles feel natural, while respecting moments others want to watch. Fifth, use support carefully. Avoid performing exaggerated boredom. Honest neutrality is kinder, and usually creates less attention. Sixth, review what actually happened. Invite sports-loving friends into one of your interests later, so belonging does not always require you to enter their ritual. Finally, know when more support is needed. Give yourself permission to skip the event without turning the choice into a speech about why everyone else is wrong. Shared culture is not the same as universal preference. You can respect the emotional meaning of the Super Bowl without borrowing feelings that are not present in you. Flexibility means choosing among several responses instead of being pushed into one move. An understandable response does not have to become the only move available. Try one 7-day experiment designed for football disinterest, but do not repeat a generic ritual every day. Choose one relevant action, use it in a real situation, and record the outcome. Keep, revise, or discard the experiment according to evidence rather than guilt. When the next room explodes over a touchdown, you do not have to manufacture the reaction. You can enjoy the people, learn one detail, leave early, or spend the night elsewhere. Belonging is stronger when it does not require counterfeit enthusiasm. The goal is not a new label. It is enough understanding and flexibility to make a more deliberate next choice.